5, 4, 3, 2.
So, welcome to another edition of the Before Skynet podcast with myself, Mr. Rock. And today I have another great guest here with me today. And he's going to help me to get deep. And you thought the other episodes were deep. This is going to be on another level. Welcome, Fez. How you doing?
So much pressure. Let's get this started, yes.
Yeah, so, Fez, who are you?
Well, right now I'm a tired dad. Baby kept me up last night, but no. Name is, Faizan, or Fez is what I like to go with.
Okay.
Who am I? I am just another soul walking this planet. I've been lucky enough, let's just say, and mostly thanks to my dad's job, that I have had a chance to, move around the world growing up. Been in Canada for 10, 20 years now. I like to think I am someone who is more than just what his work is, hobbies, things like that. But yeah, that's who I am.
Okay, cool. And just to share with you out there, my first guest, Anam, this is her big brother.
Yes. I am, and I have stories for Anam, but that is off the camera.
You can share them with me later.
Yes.
That'd be cool. All right, so as before, Skynet is focusing on technology and where it's going to be taking us with the whole idea that at some point we are going to be facing a world just like Skynet, I believe. Mm-hmm. So before we get to that point, what I'm trying to do is, dig into different areas of people's thoughts from different industries and how they see the world, how they see themselves in it, and how also they see other members of their friends, family, and so on. And with the whole plan is to try and educate others out there, just to think of things from different angles, not necessarily to come on and be like, everything that I say or anything my guest says is the exact truth, but to take the information and, go and research off the back of it.
The world is all about perspectives, right?
Yep.
Today we're going to talk. I made some notes, and I am someone who, let's just say, before I became a dad, used to read a lot more. Now I try my best. For those of you out there, if you aren't parents, you'll find out soon. And for those of you who are parents, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But the one thing I always say to people I'm talking about is, hey, when and I'll be quoting authors or talking about different people today. Mm-hmm. Just because I quoted someone does not mean that I am, Well, I believe in everything that person stood for 100%, right? It comes back to perspectives. There is value in this world that you should listen to all perspectives. You don't have to agree with them. Mm-hmm. You don't even have to agree with the person, but you can agree with the perspective. There is value in that, right? Sometimes we get too pigeonholed.
Yeah.
And technology has a little bit to do with it as well. The algorithms, because they feed you what you want.
Yeah.
Whether it's social media algorithms are really good at bringing people who are like-minded together, because then they interact with each other, or they bring people who are complete polar opposites together, because then they fight with each other instead of having a conversation. Because guess what? All of those things are good for likes and shares and tweets and retweets, but what gets left behind is conversation, just regular conversation. Two people from opposing views can have a regular conversation without trying to just, swear at their mothers all the time. It is possible. It used to be possible for most of human history. I mean,
Yeah, it's true because, people that agree, two people that sit down and agree about anything don't really learn much other than what they know already.
Yeah. It's just self-satisfaction. It's like, hey, look how smart I am because this other guy who thinks exactly like me told me what I think is right. That's why I am brilliant.
Yeah. It's always about questioning, because even when we were growing up as kids, our parents and people around us would, question what we're doing and get us to think outside the box. As we get older, we tend to find that, why should this person be questioning me? No, this is the way I think, and this is how I should be thinking. Whereas that's not really the evolution of man.
Well, when I started thinking about this podcast and started making notes, I mean, that's exactly how I titled my notes.
Okay.
Technology, misinformation, politics, and the death of critical thinking. Right? It's when people agree with you, you don't use your brain that much. right? And what technology has done, there was a great article I was reading after Donald Trump got elected and Hillary lost, and it was from someone wrote from a perspective of a bunch of Hillary voters on how shocked they were.
Yeah.
They were shocked because they were like, I didn't know this many people even supported Trump. Now, I mean, regardless of how you feel about either characters, and the article goes on, and most of them were giving examples about social media.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, I follow all the trends, and I don't see that many pro-Trump things on my timeline. It was all about Hillary. I thought she was a slam dunk. I didn't even know so many people were out there who supported this other polar opposite figure.
Yeah.
Right? And it came as a shock to these people that, hey, she lost.
Yeah.
It was quite an interesting article, and that's where, see, it's and again, feel free to jump in, but that's where technology is just a tool, can be used for good or bad, just like any other tools, right? I mean, we've seen it in human history with tools of technology. Today, it's TV, social media. 100 years ago, it was radio, right? And if you rewind to World War II. What was his name? Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's head of PR. He had one request of him. It was, give me German radio and I will give you the allegiance of the German people.
Yeah.
All he did was take German radio and turn an entire nation of intellectuals, because, hey, Germany by no means was a low culture. It is what you call a high culture. It had a history of producing artists and poets and scientists.
Yeah.
And it turned those people, using an event which happened just before, to this mindless horde, which was Hitler's Third Reich. And it gave them a simple solution of, hey, blame the Jews and all your problems will be solved.
Yeah.
And again, technology can be used either ways, and that's the scary part.
Yeah. And I guess the difference between back then and now, you have more control. You can gain more control in terms of the information that you actually, tune into. Like back then, in those days, I guess there was a limited amount of stations that you could listen to, right? Now we have an abundance of, documentaries, access to books, magazines, articles. It's just for people to filter and actually not just look at things from one perspective, but, question the information and the source.
You would think so. And when the internet came, that's what most of us thought would happen. And don't get me wrong, the internet has changed the world, and in a lot of cases for the better.
Yeah.
But with the emergence of social media, what you've seen is there's two trains of thoughts when it comes to information, right? You had the classic George Orwell 1984, which I think a lot of us read even in high school. Hey, Big Brother is watching you, and that's how governments used to censor information,
Yeah.
And back in the days, to your point, because it was limited avenues of information, it was easy to do that. Today, what we're seeing happening with misinformation is you don't need to censor anything. You just need to drown it out in a crowd.
Yeah.
Right? There is an American author by Ray Bradbury basically said you don't have to burn books to destroy a culture. Just get the people to stop reading them. And that's exactly what we're seeing happening.
Yeah.
Right? People, now you go on TikTok, you go on social media, there is so much information that it's become hard for people to figure out what's truth and what's lies.
Yeah.
And that's what is being used to control the masses. It's not about censorship, right? It's about it's about just inundate them with information.
Yeah.
And it's led us to what authors refer to as advertisement psychology or even entertainment psychology. Our brain is just like a muscle, which needs to be worked. And what's that? There's an author called Neil Postman. I wrote a book called Amusing Ourselves to Death, and this was written in 1985.
Yeah.
Very interesting premise of this book. Overall premise is we live in a post-truth society where reason and objectivity are dead. Truth doesn't matter anymore, right? If you think about the psychology of an average, let's say 40-year American, that's what he referred to, 40-year American male.
Yeah.
And this was in 1985, so the world has changed. By the time they were 40, they would have seen 1 million ads. Today, that number is probably, with YouTube, with everything else, 3, 4, 5, 6 million.
Yeah.
And what does watching that much advertisement does to a human brain is fascinating, because what an ad is, it's a 30-second snippet of instant gratification.
Yeah.
You see it in an ad, hey, you buy this car, you get the sexy girl, life is good, right? Or something very simple.
Yeah.
And people get used to simple being good, instant self-gratification, and that's how they start viewing the world, right? In today's world, even when it comes to the most complex problems, people's attention span is only about 5 minutes, and then they move on. And even our traditional media like TV, if you look at the 24-hour news channels, that's exactly what they have done.
Yeah.
You sit in front of CNN and watch a news story. For 5 minutes, they'll feed you a news story, and then they'll say, okay, now stop, focus on something else. Here's the next news story. Then stop, here's an ad. Then stop, and here's the next news story. You could sit there, watch the news for an hour, and if I ask you at the end of that hour, hey, that 5-minute news story which you saw first, can we have an hour-long conversation about what you think about it, and you won't remember anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just people get the sense of being informed without actually being informed. And that's what makes some people like dangerous, because then they take those ideas which they only have maybe 0.5% of knowledge, just the hype snippets, and then they go on social media and make another 5-minute vlog, which can be fed to 1 million people, where they're sitting there like experts, and there's your misinformation starting.
Yeah, because it's like just being, babies in the sense that they just want to be fed. I'm going to sit here and you're going to spoon feed me, and I'm going to be mentally nourished.
Yeah.
Whereas, I encourage, and I'm sure you do as well, that, the information that we hear about, like just dig into a bit further. And find out, what's the true source. I find a lot of times people will come to me and say, oh, have you heard about this? Or have you heard about that? Did you hear what such and such? Did you hear what such and such? I'm like, okay, where did you get that information from? Oh, I saw it on Twitter. I'm like, and where was the foundation? Where's the main source come from? And most of the times they have no idea.
See, it's a book by a Israeli author. I forget his last name, but it's Sapiens. It's a brief history of humankind. This book is very interesting. What he says is human psychology is as such where complicated things make us dizzy. This brain up here isn't meant for complicated things. And this brain up here, as I said earlier, is a muscle just like any other muscle in your body, which you have to build, right? And this is why at night, people don't pick up a book. They would rather watch TikTok or Netflix, because if you're in bed and you pick up a book and start reading in 5 minutes, guess what? You're going to sleep, because books are complicated and an ad isn't popping up every 5 pages.
Yeah.
Right. And this is, and everything has become a form of entertainment to be fed to the masses so they can dumb the brain down.
Yeah.
So then critical thinking goes away. And, Neil Postman, who I just spoke about earlier, he calls it, we have become the great abbreviators. Everything needs to be abbreviated.
Yeah, everything.
And complicated. And hey, maybe someone can, but I don't think you can explain a complicated economic or political issue on, let's say, what's happening with the race relations and the history of civil rights and all of that in a 5-minute vlog. Maybe someone's creative enough to fit something in, but to someone who's never heard about that, they can't understand with a 5-minute vlog. But in the I was going to call it news, but Freudian slip, entertainment came out, because that's exactly what it is.
Yes.
In the news entertainment business today, and again, don't get me wrong, it is a business.
Yeah.
They have only one job, both TV and social media. Their job isn't to spread the news or information. Their job is to gather an audience and sell it to advertisers.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of these serious conversations, as far as technology has brought us, specifically talking about social media and TV, you can't have these very serious conversations like political conversations or things. Politics is a great topic if we can go there for a second, right?
Let's go.
Because people, I am someone who, the minute I got my Canadian citizenship, I have never missed a single election. I always go out and vote, whether it's a municipal election, provincial, federal, because as human beings living in this society, that one vote, one person I look at it as an awesome responsibility, because that is the day we get to decide where is our future headed, where the society goes, the leaders we choose. forge the path where we go as Canada, as US, as wherever you live.
Yeah.
And I have been, and again, maybe this is just my upbringing from, my grandparents or my parents, where I don't take election season lightly. I actually go and study what everyone is standing for.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, in today's world, with everything, with the shortened attention spans and with everyone just wanting to see something for 5 minutes to make a decision,
Yeah.
it's not going to be the smartest politician winning. It's going to be the one who's the best on social media.
Yeah.
Because it's charm. It's about who can sell a story.
Yeah.
How many people, you probably know many people who go vote in elections. Next time, ask them how many of them spend time actually reading what they call the party manifesto when they release their plans before the election. Now, those things are usually sometimes hundreds of pages. They're quite boring.
Yeah.
So I see why people don't read them. But there has to be a better alternative than, hey, I saw a 5-minute video of the guy and he talked about the right things and I want to go vote for him.
Yeah.
Right? You can't solve complicated problems in 5 minutes.
So even on that topic, right, of politics and voting, are there any tools out there that you could suggest in the people that find it hard to sit down and spend, I don't know, an hour or two reading through the manifesto that they could use to make sure that they're finding out, the key points? Because like you said, people have short attention spans. So, there may be the ability to provide them with tools that at least gives them the bare bones, and then they can, start digging further.
See, and that's the thing. Every tool I can think of requires work and time. Until, hey, maybe AI one day will develop to a point where we'll have those little brain chips where we can download the whole information.
Yeah.
When that time comes, maybe. Right now, it's going to require time and work, right? Because it's the written word is something which is, well, it's written down, and there's no other way. You can use technology to get to it. You don't need to read it off paper. You can read it on Kindle. You can read it on computer.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's still going to require time for you to sit down and read.
Well, I guess with that said, there is how we've got ChatGPT now, and we can plug in and we can use those tools to say, give me a synopsis or, condense this information. I guess that could be a tool.
That could be a tool, but then here you come back to the whole misinformation around the world, right? Because with ChatGPT and AI, it's basically a tool. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the whole concept of garbage in, garbage out. If I fill the internet with misrepresentation, what do you think the AI is going to pick up? Right. And that's it. Yes. See, someone basically said back in the days, the governments would hide knowledge. And think of if you walk into a room with all these chairs and I put one piece of information on a chair and say, hey, the truth is written on it. It's easy enough to get. Yeah. Now, if I want to hide the truth, back in the days, I would just take that piece of paper and make it disappear. In today's world, you walk into that room and there's a piece of paper on every chair.
Yes.
And I tell you one of them is the truth. How many people are going to go through it? They're going to pick one piece of paper, 2, 3, and they'll be like, screw this, I'm out.
Yeah. Let me average it from that rate.
And again, it's the world, at least, in the Western world, it's the entertainment culture is as such where the job of a normal person is, hey, you go work for 8 hours, you go sleep for 8 hours. Okay, that's 16 hours gone. The next 8 hours, you either shop or you either just entertain yourself mindlessly.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game. And it's those eyeballs for that 8 hours, which every advertiser is vouching to buy and every technology company wants to sell.
Yeah.
And that's where they make their money.
Yeah. I think it'd be a good exercise for people out there that feel like they may not have enough time in the day.
Yeah.
It's actually to record what you actually do between the hours of leaving work to going to bed.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people will be surprised how much time they actually waste idling on things that are just not important.
Yeah. And again, it's how you repurpose your time as well. Right? I mean, everyone needs downtime. So I'm not saying, hey, we all need to be robots, that you finish work and then you start doing all this research on how I can make the world a better place, and then you go to sleep and you do nothing else.
Yeah.
People have kids, people have life. You can consciously choose to use your time in certain ways.
Yes.
Right? I mean, instead of sitting on let's say, TikTok for an hour.
Yep.
And again, this is not ideal, but hey, if you can, maybe find an hour-long news program or podcast. Although, again, you come back to when you're watching, and this is where technology comes in, and this is why I say, TV and social media aren't serious mediums for complicated conversation, because it's also the human psyche. See, if you're watching a news channel and this person is sitting there, and even if they're the most informative person in the world, and you sit there for an hour to listen to a story where they're going in depth.
Yeah.
The problem is your brain is doing two things at once. You're sitting in front of that screen. One part is it's trying to process the words of the person, but then you have the screen with the colors.
Yeah.
And there's half your brain. And then again, if you look at a toddler's reaction to the screen, it's the best because they are mesmerized.
Yeah.
So it's a good alternative.
Yeah.
If you actually just say, okay, I'm still going to watch the news, I'm still going to be on social media, but instead of just watching YouTube shorts on a topic, let me go find someone who is an expert in a topic and go listen to them talk for an hour.
Yes.
Right? Instead of, watching 10 clips during that time.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a good alternative.
Yeah, I think it's all about thinking about alternatives to stuff. Because many times when I'm here with my partner, I'm at home, I'll watch something and like every 5 minutes or so, I'll pause if there's a really important part of it, and I'll have a discussion.
Yeah.
The benefit for me in that is, it gives me a time to pause, digest, communicate my thoughts to somebody, hear what their thoughts are, move forward. Because, you can find it hard just sitting down and listening and watching something, and by the end of it, understanding everything that you've watched, unless there's some kind of interaction.
It's like having I know you're not much of a foodie, but right, it's like having a good meal versus going to a buffet, right? Yes, if you go to a buffet, you have all these different choices and you can eat and eat and eat.
Yeah.
But by the end of the buffet, for most people, if I say, hey, which was the one dish you enjoyed the most?
Yeah.
They won't know. But if you go to, let's say, a fancy restaurant with 3 or 4 courses, and you just eat one dish at a time, you can actually formulate opinions about those dishes. After the appetizer, you can have a conversation with the person you're there with.
Yes.
It's really good, tastes good. Okay, now comes the main course. Let's have that, and then have a conversation about it. So it's not about, it's about how we use technology, right? We use technology to our benefit. The world today is seeing something I'd like to call the death of an expert. Right? Because, and COVID was a perfect example of this, because on one hand, you had all these people who had spent their lifetime studying disease and were, doctors with 3 PhDs, and they would put something out there. And then you had someone bored at home because they were in lockdown, spend 10 minutes on their toilet and be like, no, but I found this on the internet. I'm like, I'm sorry. No. Yes, the internet has provided everyone a platform to hear their voices, but my apologies if I offend anyone, but not all voices are the same.
Yeah.
There are people who dedicate their life on a topic, and their voice should hold more weight than some random person on the internet.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the internet isn't looking for qualifications. Nope. It's looking for who can build the best social media following. And that's when, even when you come back to politics, we don't elect people because they're the best ones, because they know how to do a job. No, nowadays in most countries, it's whoever can show up on TV and be good for 5 minutes. That's it.
Yep. Yeah? Can sing to the audience and make them feel empowered as well.
This is the thing. There was a saying, and I don't remember by who, but basically it said the great ideas are for great people, valuable ideas are for valuable people. And for the masses, it's just positive psychology, right? It's this, and it makes me nauseous, this whole spread of positive psychology that everyone has to be happy and everything needs to be great. It's like the Lego movie. Positive people rarely change the world. Most of the people who change the world, for better or for worse, but at least they brought change to the world, were pessimistic, sad people who wanted something different. If you're always happy, you will never see what's wrong around you.
I don't think there's a balance between, being happy and seeing happy things and trying to create that. Whereas, some people can be not looking at the happy side of life, but not wanting to do anything about it.
Yeah. Well,
So-
that's a whole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, well, now you're going into depression where you're unhappy and you don't want to do anything about
Yeah.
it. Yes, no, I agree. And yeah. And again, you know what? Even that, even I know during COVID, people, people basically did say, and and this is a fact, we saw a rise in mental health crisis. And yes,
Yeah.
I agree that partly it was because people were locked down and shut inside. But do you think the fact that people were probably spending more time on social media,
Yes.
seeing how other people live their life, and that inherently, because if someone's doing better than you, that has a negative mental side effect
Yeah.
on you. You think that didn't have anything to do with people going into depression? I was reading this. It's just some posts from some lady who noticed an influencer in the wild.
Yeah.
And he basically said, and it was a very good post with Mother's Day coming. It was quite relevant, and it basically. She was sitting at some swimming pool at some hotel or somewhere, and she saw some lady walk in with matching swimsuit to her little daughter. Before the daughter even who wanted to get into the water right away. You know how kids are. They see a giant pool, they want to jump in and splash and have fun. The mother kept her there for 30 minutes trying to get the perfect picture.
Yeah.
The kid then was allowed to get in for 5 minutes. The kid kept saying, "Hey, mommy, come in, come in." Mommy was busy on her phone,
Yeah.
doing everything. And then 5 minutes later, mommy's like, "Okay, let's go."
Yeah.
Right? Now, this mother's going to go home. She's going to post this happy picture at the pool. Some poor mom who's been struggling all day, running around with a sick kid is going to see that.
Yep.
What do you think that's going to do to her psyche?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's becoming an even bigger thing more and more day by day, because we're at that point now that we've already been creating a false reality visually through videos and entertainment and things like that. And now we're taking it to the next point where we have AI who's generating these
For
false,
us. Yeah.
So people are falling deeper and deeper into the hole of, thinking that life is supposed to be great.
Yeah.
Life is what you make it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the greatness, you have to have ups and downs to really appreciate the ups.
And to make life great, or to, even think of a new path, what do you need? A strong this.
Yes.
And what we talked about earlier, the way the society is evolving, this is what's going down the most.
Yep.
I mean, you can, and it's funny, I know we're probably like, to the audience, it may look like we're going in circles, but all of these things are connected. Because when you start losing this and you experience a decline in critical thinking in society, that's when you even have a rise of things like fascism, which we're seeing in the world right now. Again, the appeal of simple solutions make people happy. The simpler, the better. Someone comes in and says, "Hey, don't worry, guys, I'm going to make things great like they were again." No one asks how. No one asks what you're going to do. It's just this simple idea sold. Hey, remember 20 years ago, everyone was happy?
Yeah.
I'm going to make you happy again.
Yeah.
How? Nobody knows. I heard that guy say he can make me happy again. Let's go vote for him.
Everyone can relate to a point in their life where it was great. Not everyone, not the same time point as everybody else, but you fed them that story to them. So I like to dig into one of my favorite questions. I always like to see where people are coming from on this. So, what has been the biggest impact in technology of your life so far?
Easy. Cell phones. Change the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. This little thing has a bigger computer or better processing power than the rocket that went to the moon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your first cell phone,
Alcatel.
Alcatel. Never heard of that
Giant brick.
Yeah.
From Vodafone. So from your neck of the woods. Yeah. It was a giant brick. It could, and it was funny. I don't know how it was made, but I could receive any incoming call, and I could only call a handful of numbers.
What?
Yeah. And I remember with my parents, they basically, obviously, mom, well, again, at that point, even I think my mom didn't have a cell phone.
Yeah.
There was a home phone. There was my dad's phone. And then I had to pick, I had a couple of other family members, and then I got to pick one or two friends.
Yeah.
That was it. And it was it was funny. See, in my lifetime, I've seen cell phones, and again, people older than me have seen even bigger bricks. But I've seen cell phones from being big to becoming really tiny, to then becoming big all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because there was a time in I want to say 2000s, late 2000, like 2009, 2008, 2010, before the iPhone basically came out.
Yeah.
It was all about smaller is better.
Yes.
And then it got flipped on its head.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like mobile phones for me, it was a big one as well, you know, especially when it came to the camera phone.
Oh, yeah. Ooh.
Especially
Remember
when
the early camera phone pictures, the grainy images? Oh, man.
Yeah, they didn't really come off your phone. They just stayed on your phone, right?
My dad had this digital camera where you had to put in discs, like floppy disks into it.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. You opened it from the back, you put the entire disc in there.
Wow.
Yeah. Good days. Yeah, no, now I use those discs as coasters. I still have. Dude, my dad was in. See, if you ask my dad, he's still in basement, has punch cards because back in the days, that's how you would program computers. Yeah, and him when he started. I remember the first time we got a home computer. We were still living in Pakistan.
Yeah,
and my dad got this carpenter to custom make this cabinet just so where the computer will go. And I still remember when I started getting more into like, you know, what this technology was. Remember those computers which had the speed written on it and it was like 100 megahertz and then it became, you know, your friend would buy one like mine says 120. I've got 200.
Yeah.
I'm like, you think about those things now and you're like, oh, wow, that's what I was excited about.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, technology has come a long way. And see, we're in an interesting time of human era where if you look at, you know, you take away the last 100 years, it was pretty stagnant. Yes, there was technological progress being made, but it was slow. And it almost was, you know, and then humans had time to catch up to something new that came out.
Yeah.
Right? But now things are coming out and coming and going so fast that you have people who were born, you know, people who are still alive now, especially some of the senior generation, they cannot interact with technology coming out in their lifetime. I don't think it wasn't as prevalent in human history ever before.
Yeah. And I guess the access to it as well.
Yeah, even that.
You know, the abundance of many different versions of the same phone that we could have nowadays. And they do almost the same thing. But, you know, the prestige that comes, you know, along with, probably not so much nowadays, but, you know, an Apple phone used to be like, oh, you've got an Apple. Ooh, he must be special or something like that, you know? But, you know, for me, I've always been an Android guy.
Yeah.
You know, I could do what I want to do with it, when I want to do it, without being locked down into an ecosystem such as Apple's. But I do like the laptops, but other than that, you know. But yeah, the mobile phone, it's more than a mobile phone nowadays. It's a whole computer.
It's your life.
Yeah.
It's your life. People will forget their wallets before they forget their mobile phone. Yeah. No, and it's how quickly this technology has evolved within our lifetime, right? If you just think about when the first printing press came out to how long to the first digital printer.
Yeah.
And look at the time between where the first digital printer to now, where most people don't even need or own a printer in their house, right? I mean, when was the last time you even used a printer?
Oh, we use a printer all the time, but it's because I'm old school.
Fair. Stop killing trees.
You know? But I think one of the biggest things about the mobile phone, at one point, I was like, when they came up with the idea that you'll be able to have video chat with your phone and see somebody like on the other side of the world live, it was like, nah, that's not going to happen for a good while. And then before we knew it, it was here. But there was still quite a few years in between, you know, when the color screen came out to that point where you had the camera and you could have those calls. Nowadays, something that comes out today, 6 months down the line, we've got a new version of it, which is potentially 10 times better.
See, when it comes to communication, and I've seen this evolve in my lifetime, and it was very close to me at home because of my dad's job, that my dad is retired now, but he worked in the oil industry in exploration. So he was always out in the field. So how most of his career went was he would be gone for, let's say, 4 weeks. He would come back for 2-3 weeks, and then he would be gone for 4 weeks. And I was talking to my mom, interestingly enough, the other day, because he had this job. It was the same type of job. He was never one of those office guys. I remember once his company asked him to move to an office. He gave it a shot. Trust me, 6 months later, he's like, I'm going back in the field. He was not the 9-to-5 guy. He was like, I would rather go spend all this time in working. And then when I'm home, I spend time with my kids, give them the full attention, right? But where I'm going with this is in terms of communication. My mom telling me how when they first got married, and it was the early 1980s, they would be writing letters to each other and the occasional phone call, because remember, he wasn't in a city, he was in the middle of the desert, to a point where later in his career, I still distinctly remember, because he retired now 5-6 years ago, so, recent. My mom would be working in the kitchen all day. She would have a screen with the video chat going. My dad would be in the middle of the desert in Saudi Arabia or some place. And he would be working, and he had his camera going, and all day. Sometimes they wouldn't even talk. They'd just be like, I don't know. Like, it's like they're in the same room. And that all happened in his career, in his lifetime, right? Going from writing letters to just being on the video screen all day with your wife. Worlds apart.
It's crazy. Yeah, and that instant always connected to other people. I think that can have for some instances and some environments, it's a good thing.
Yes.
Keeps you connected to the loved ones and what you're doing for the day, or, your partner or whatnot. But there is a negative impact to that. People just assume because I can communicate with you, you should respond. I need your attention. I need it now, regardless of what you're doing. People will send a message and the other person will read it. The person can see they've read it, and it's kind of like, why haven't you not responded? You've read my message. Why are you not responding? Main reason is you don't control them.
Funny story. Just a couple of months ago on Microsoft Teams, that's what we use at work. I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, we do too.
There's a setting where, in Microsoft Teams, the default setting is when you send a message, if they read it, the little arrow lights up or whatever. There's a setting where you can turn that off, where when you send a message, you don't know when they read it, but then the same way, if you read it, they don't know. I turned that on a few months ago because I'm one of those people where when a message comes in, I'll read it instantly. I may not respond to it right away because you need to know what's important versus what's urgent, but I will read it. But to your point, when I had that setting on, that expectation was from the people. It was like, hey, he's read my message. Why hasn't he? We've all become a generation of doctors. We're all on call without being doctors.
That instant, and I do that on my messaging. On my mobile phone. I don't really need to know that this person has read it straight away. There's certain people in my family that I need to know at least once a day if they've if they're okay. So I, give them a few hours, respond, cool. If you haven't responded in a few hours, then I'll, other than that, you respond to me when you're ready.
Well, I mean, right now, just before I walked in, I was in the car, I got a message from my neighbor on WhatsApp. I opened it. Till right now, I'm kind of feeling bad. I'm like, well, poor guy thinks I opened it and I haven't responded. Sorry, Dave. I don't know if you're watching it. I read your message. I am going to respond. I promise. I just hope you're not offended that I've read it.
He has not forgotten about you.
Yes.
Sometimes we just need the time to think about our response as well.
Yeah.
Because we can instantly give someone some information, but it's not necessarily what they need or what you need to convey. So.
But again, it comes back to we're not used to sitting and thinking about things. Right? Most people, even when they're alone, they're not truly alone because they always have something on in the background. They're always watching something. They're always connected somehow. Right? And this is why, before COVID, me and my wife would travel quite a bit. And the one place we would always take at least one vacation to once a year was Cuba. Because no other reason than the technology and the information technology and the communication system is not very good, which means you can kind of go off the grid, right? If you're even at a resort in Cuba, they'll give you, or back in the days would give you a card where you get the internet for an hour.
Yeah.
And you have to literally log in and the clock starts. You can always buy more cards, but it kind of forces you to put the phone down. And you start appreciating the world, right?
Yeah.
No disrespect. This piece of technology has changed the world, a lot for the better, some for the worse.
Yep.
But once in a while, you just need to have a human conversation and just smell the roses, as they say.
Yeah. Put your phone down, stand away from it, and just communicate.
Unfortunately, I think at this point, with the technology evolving the way it is, we might be heading to that. It was a Bruce Willis movie, Surrogate, where it's a world of like bots, and you basically just sit inside a machine in your home.
And you go into that world.
Yeah. And even remember the scene where even his wife saw him naturally, and she was shocked. She was like, "Oh my God, no! I don't want you to see me like this."
Yeah.
Yeah. And hey, we might be very well headed this way because
I think. It's something that I raised, I think it was last week in the previous episode. There's a film called, you ever watch WALL-E?
Oh yeah, WALL-E. I love WALL-E.
Yeah.
WALL-E.
Where people just, just end up just sitting around, just connected. And, all these films that we watch kind of talk about that as being the future. And everything that comes in films ends up being reality at some point. So,
yes,
we need to be aware of where we are actually going and the things that we are supporting and, driving, to become fruition.
As much as we sell the masses the whole idea of original thought and creativity, can you imagine this world if 8 billion people had original ideas? Do you think the powers that be would like it? What was that old saying? You'd rather rule a island of 100 dumb people than 100 smart people.
Yeah.
And again, it comes down to the easy way, because even for our brain, we like it's instant gratification. It's a hit of dopamine, right? Let's just stay connected. And there's some very, very interesting Black Mirror episodes that I've been thinking of. But to your point, most of the things you see in movies become reality because that's where ideas are born out of, right? Some smart kid probably saw them cell phones in Star Trek or communicators and said, hey, maybe we can make that a reality.
See, when you talk about Black Mirror, it's probably 8 years old, maybe.
Yeah.
Everything that's happened in all of those episodes is here now.
Yeah.
Even that one that was quite shocking, the robot dog.
Robot dog. The social credit system. I remember that episode well. Yeah. No, it was, and again, it's a good and bad, right? I mean, it depends on how you use it. Like, I was having a chat with my wife the other day about, I think it was yesterday actually. I don't know if you got it on your phone. They did the test of the Amber Alert system in Ontario for a few seconds. It went bing, bing, bing. Now,
I turned it off.
I as I said earlier, like I drive a Tesla, and I'm like, hey, I'll be very okay once there's enough cars out there, Teslas or otherwise, because all these cars have cameras and they're connected. Why doesn't the government invest in, getting access to those cameras that in case there is an Amber Alert in certain area and you're looking for a specific car and a specific license plate, literally tap into you have driving cameras on every highway out there. You don't need to look for someone.
I think the other side to that, though, is when we open the door to say, yes, you can have this, but then they want to add in all this extra stuff and just, people will be like, oh, yeah, it's okay to have this little piece, but they don't realize there's all these extra bits. So in terms of then they can monitor you even more, monitor your pet, your neighbors, people just walking down the street, all those kind of things. So say, for instance, like in the UK, it's the
CCTV capital of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you become so used to it, you don't realize it's there, but it does great things, but also it allows them to collect so much data and information about people and their private
Privacy is
lives.
dead, my friend. Privacy is dead. Do you know, when was this? Was it Roomba or iRobot, one of those companies which Amazon bought? And Amazon had been working on their own home cleaning robot thing.
Yeah.
But the reason why they bought this other company is because whenever one of these, robots maps out your house, it has a map of
Yes.
your house, which is uploaded because that's how it knows which corners to go.
Yep.
Now, Amazon has that data. You will get recommendations of exactly what will fit in what corner of your house, and
Wow.
you will not get things which are bigger than what you would not be interested in buying. Privacy in this age and day is dead. Like, I know it's funny enough. I have friends who would say something, who would put a post about privacy and this and that, and their very next post would be chilling over here in this place. I'm like, you're
With
worried about your
location
privacy. You're telling people where you are. I don't need. You're telling me where you are. I don't need to find you.
Yeah. It is that. It is that deep in terms of what we're sharing and what we, a lot of times we feel that we're managing our data. I think that's another big question that's out there at the moment, which is the fact that we have all these tools now, it's AI that can do all these, has the ability to, create information, create images, do all these things. We're now at the point where we're so close to passwords being obsolete for people to use now.
Yeah, I would say to a certain extent they are right now.
Yeah.
I don't remember. If you were to ask me to log into my banking on my phone or my computer, I would have a hard time remembering the password. On my phone, it's
fingerprint. Yeah.
On my computer, Google saved everything.
Yeah. The downside to that is that we become so reliant on a particular system or group of systems, and this is by design.
Yeah.
Because they want us to be part of the system. So when they're ready to say, "Oh, you don't follow this," okay. Click, lock you out.
It's about social contract and living in a society, right? Every society has certain rules. And yes, to a point, it's on both sides, right? Yes, this technology allows, the powers to be to control us.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is the same technology that has allowed us to expose the powers to be who have violated the social contract that is between people and a government or, things like that. I mean, if it wasn't for the phone, the Black Lives Movement wouldn't have picked up as much.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not get it wrong. George Floyd was not the first,
Yes.
African-American to be tortured by the cops. He was just the first one to get caught on one of these things, and the video blew up, right? So it's a sword that cuts both ways.
Yeah. You can have a bit of salt and a bit of sugar at the same time.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on, still in that area. So Dr. Jeffrey Hinton, who was classed as one of the godfathers of AI, he recently left Google.
Yeah.
And now he's warning on the impacts of AI, and he's quite afraid as to what's going on.
Yes.
What does that say about the whole industry in terms of, the people that are in there that are developing it? Because from my point of view, it just seems like people are in a race to become famous or make as much money as they can, because they know there's a limited time of this, because it's going to be, I'm either going to be the elite or I'm going to be at the bottom, and they have to make that jump.
And it goes back to the same story. I mean, again, people developing it, you can't really... It's like the Manhattan Project, when the U.S. invented the atomic bomb.
Right.
Do you know how many... Most of those scientists, once it was used, or even when they tested it, were in shock, right? They pursued it for their love of science when it started.
Yeah.
But when the power of the weapon came out, they were like, what have we done?
Oh, shit.
Right? And with technology, it's just like any other tool, right? Now, AI is a different ballgame, because now you're basically, technology goes from being a tool to self-reliant. Because so far, every piece of technology, us as the human race have invented, it's always been a tool, and there's a human being behind it, choosing to use it for evil or the betterment of society.
Yeah.
AI it's going to have its own rules or game. And again, depends on how deeply it gets deployed. Initially, Chat GPT and this stuff, it's just going to help us out. And it's just like when the internet first came, right? The first time someone got an email and they were like, oh my God, I don't have to write letters and put a stamp on it. My life has become so much easier. Who knows what it can evolve to? It's going to come down to people, not just who are creating it, but people who are going to keep working on it and what they use it for.
Yeah.
And if you give it free reign, AI might not be too kind to human beings.
Yeah, that's one of the key things I've been talking about, and I've read this book, Scary Smart.
Okay,
I need to find out the author. I have the book downstairs. I can't remember. It's Ali.
I'll make a note of it.
But what he's focusing on is that we need to, start creating that relationship between humans and AI robots to show that we are good people to each other, because we're the ones that are feeding them with the information.
Yes.
And they're going to see us in a certain light. And if they see us as being destructive against each other and against the world, all that's going to happen is, well, these humans are the disease.
Yes.
We need to wipe it out for the better of the earth, the creatures, the plants, everything.
Yeah.
Humans are the biggest destructors ever.
We are. We absolutely are. And again, it's the disparity between different humans as well, right? I mean, what was it? 8 people in the US have more wealth than 4 billion people on the planet, right? If you were to ask AI, if you were to put AI in ultimate power and said, hey, you can do whatever you want, I want you to make the human race better, AI is probably going to go the Thanos way. Say, hey, half of them disappear, and then I can have equal resources for everyone else to be equally happy, right? You're right. Human beings have been not kind to each other. And if an outside observer, whether it's AI or maybe an alien showing up, they're going to be like, hey, this species is kind of messed up in the head, man.
Yeah.
They're going to get their priorities right.
Yeah, the difference between the AI robots and the aliens can leave.
Yeah, there you go.
The robots are going to stay and be like, well, this is our...
I might start a self-destruct sequence. I don't want to deal with these people anymore. I'm going to die.
This is
Human beings are so depressing, the AI commits suicide.
Yeah. That's deep.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think the government's role in regulating the development and also the deployment of technologies? Do you think they need to really step up to the plate? Because a lot of the things that happen within the government are usually from external companies or resources that are brought in to help the government build. So from that perspective, the government really don't have the resources internally to manage what's going on right now. Do they need to start employing external companies in, or should they be working within themselves to educate and develop people and their own processes, procedures, technologies, and things like that?
Well, first of all, depends which government, because, hey, if you give Kim Jong-un the control of AI and tell him to regulate, we're screwed.
Yeah.
But see, the government is actually having a very hard time. I was reading something, and this was more about the US, but I'm sure it applies to most governments around the world. And the name of the game is money. They're actually having a hard time recruiting people in information technology and computer science just because the private sector pays so well.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if you do even find candidates, they're either not for a lack of better word, and I'm not disrespecting anyone who works for the government, they're either not the most ambitious or the top of the mind, top of their class.
Yeah.
Right? Or they just can't find people because the private sector is picking a lot of the brilliant ones up. And that in itself is a problem. But now let's say this issue didn't exist and the government had all the resources.
Yeah.
But then it comes down to the individual politician, right? Or the actual government. I still believe the government does have a role, right? Because if you go into what I mentioned earlier, the social contract theory, which is basically a contract between a government and its people who live in that society on, how life should run.
Yeah.
And most governments, if you go talk to, some of the older philosophers, the government's power is government's the ultimate power of the land.
Yeah.
Right. They have the biggest stick. That's how you keep control. No, at the end of the day, that's what it is with human beings, right? If you go into tribalism back in the days, there was no such thing. Right now, what is the government? Me and you live in Toronto. We break the laws of Toronto. We're screwed because the government is more powerful than you and me.
Yeah.
Not the case in many developing countries. But at least for, developed countries, that's what it is. So given that the government is in that position today, it does make sense that they need to have some control because they are tasked with the social contract of the betterment of the people who live in that society. Now, to your point, the reality is governments don't have the resources to do that. And that's where they need to bring outsiders in, right? But then you go down the path of private companies work for dollars and not just the betterment of people. And how do you balance that? Right? AI, AI is gonna, as I said earlier, evolve just like the internet. It's gonna start evolving as a tool. But we may end up screwing ourselves because this tool is more powerful than one we have ever invented. And this tool can probably make other tools. I mean, Skynet. Or we might want to go down the RoboCop path.
That's another story. But at that point, there was a question that I raised on my last podcast, which was, and ties in with this, is when AI fights AI, that's when we, are in the deepest trouble. Because even if we think, not even just that, the AI within the West, for example, when AI from Russia, China, wherever starts fighting, was in competition, will it have the moral and the ethics to think to itself, the impact that it's going to have on these sets of people, rather than this is how I reach my objective?
I'll make you even one worse. What makes you think the AI is going to fight each other? Maybe the two AIs get together and say, what the hell are we doing? Let's kill the disease, which is humanity in itself. AIs aren't it's not like a tank or other pieces of technology where you basically say, point that way and shoot, right? If it's true artificial intelligence, it may reach that conclusion. Maybe, initially they'll have, fights, but then eventually it will evolve itself to a point saying, hey, human beings might be the problem, not us. Or, and to your original point, no, it won't. Initially, it'll be a program which is designed to do something and it will go for its objective.
So getting a little personal now, as one father to another, there are things that I really think about in terms of where the future is going, and so how it's going to impact my child or my nieces and nephews and things like that. So with that said, as a new father, how do you see the future for your daughter, and what will you need to do to prepare her for it?
It's going to be a scary world for her because the world is changing very, very fast. Funny. We have a Kumon down the street, and we have this new, I don't know if you've seen these open up, called Code Ninjas.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, which get kid into coding. And I told my wife the minute she even got pregnant, I'm like, we're going to enroll her in that Code Ninja thing as soon as possible. I don't care what she studies. It's, when it comes to technology, coding, AI, these are going to be almost like basic skill sets required for everyone to just, survive in society and be successful, regardless of what your professional training or, even doctors 20 years from now will need to have understanding of how their tools work, because everything's going to be running on, AI and technology. Right? Even lawyers, even MBAs, whatever, engineers. It's just like learning how to use this, right? And then kids will pick up. It's funny. I see my daughter with phones, and it amazes me because she is not even 18 months. And she picks up my phone, and you see her trying to hit the fingerprint button. She picks up grandma's phone because her grandma's phone has a little pattern, and she's trying to move her fingers around.
Yeah.
Like at not even 18 months, she understands that, hey, different members of the family have devices set up differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I need to do different things to try to unlock them because she's seen us do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no. And then again, in this world, you have to, I mean, the fundamentals will still remain the same, but you just gotta, you gotta stay 2 steps ahead of the technology.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely the education. And for a young child, this is, it's a great time for them in terms of being able to take in that information and develop it, just like how we would as, in our generation, you'd learn to speak, you'd learn to do like basic maths, you do all those other things. These are going to be like you said, the basics, the fundamentals. Mathematics might still be part of it, in the next 10, 15 years, but it's all going to be on this new technology and new learning, new implementations, and a new skill set that I have to learn from day one.
Now, that being said, people raising kids, maybe we should also teach our kids some of the fundamentals which may seem outdated in case, AI takes over and destroys everything and they have to go back to surviving like they used to before all this technology.
Yeah.
Because that's where, the ideal state would be, hey, we head towards Star Wars, the world gets a better place. Star Trek, and the world becomes a better place. No need for money.
Yeah.
All humanity united. We're going exploring the stars. Now, that would be ideal, but you can't just, pin your hopes up on what will be ideals or what will be utopia. The reality of the world is it's becoming more competitive. I remember my dad telling me a story how, it was my dad, I believe so. When he walked into his first interview, there was about 10 people sitting in the room and maybe 2 or 3 of them had an undergrad and the rest had, less than undergrad. Today, you walk into even an entry-level interview, all those 10 people have a master's and the intern getting coffee for the boss probably has 2 undergrads.
Yes.
Like the technology has certainly made the world a smaller place. And brilliant people, no matter where, can make a mark for themselves, and you just have to compete.
Yeah. You have to make that mark somehow, some way. So I always like to ask this question to my guests because I think it's the one question that really sets, the tone in terms of where we're going and how to look at the future, especially with AI and technology. So, what are your fears for the future of technology and AI? And what will you need to do to be ready for it?
Fear is simple. We don't learn from history and we keep making the same mistakes with technology as we have done so far, right? It's AI coming in for technology, I would say, was similar to when human beings first created the nuclear weapon. There's this little curve which historians look at as the technological progress of weapons and the human beings' capability to destroy themselves.
Yeah.
And with nuclear weapons, it gave that one weapon where, humanity was finally able to obliterate itself if it wanted to. Right? You could end human race as is.
Yeah.
And luckily, since we have invented that weapon, we have been careful with it.
Yes.
And I see AI going the same way. Again, fingers crossed and hoping is that we're more responsible with it, because AI, unlike, as we discussed, is not. It's not like what we have discovered or invented in the past.
Yeah.
This is something very different, and it could go south very fast if not utilized properly.
Yeah. Because even if we think about that from a point of view, like the weapon that we could use to obliterate, the human race, it's only in the hands of a few. And you've got to go through, I'm assuming that you have to jump through hoops to actually be able to press that button. But with AI and technology, it's virtually going to be in the hands of everybody.
That's the scary part.
Yeah.
And that's where your earlier point about what's the role of the government in terms of regulating it is so important, right? Governments need to figure out, and unfortunately, governments have been known to be notoriously slow in figuring this out, again, because of the reasons we discussed earlier. But they need to get ahead of this because, again, one could hope that humanity and human beings do the right thing and use it, properly for the betterment of the human race. But unfortunately, if human history has taught us anything, most of us don't think that way.
Yeah. Well, I'm very much hoping that AI will come along and bring us a different reality of where we see it going. Because I do believe that, potentially they could be the next species and want to take us out. So I, really agree with talking to your Alexa device very nicely.
Yes.
Start learning it now.
Yeah, exactly. Saying thank you every time you ask her to do something. Well, that's why I would rather have the Wall-E future, where everyone's lazy. Yes, we may have destroyed the world, but we live on a giant big spaceship and robots still serve us. Because the alternative is, not good.
Cool. All right. Anything else that you want to add to the end of this show? It's been a great show so far, but...
See, I think it was George Carlin who made this comment, and I just thought of this in one of his comedy skits about the planet has been here long before human beings were around, and if we don't do things the right way, it will be around long after.
Yeah.
We can't blow up the planet, we'll just blow ourselves up, and the planet will eventually recover.
Yes.
So, we need to be cognizant of that.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. But in the meantime, enjoy it while we have it, and try and treat it the right way and treat AI and technology. But first of all, treat each other. We need to treat each other the right way. And hopefully AI and technology will learn from our greatness.
And you can start doing that by subscribing, because this guy works very, very hard. Okay. Treat him the right way.
Thank you. So make sure you subscribe, follow, add some comments if you need to, ask some questions, and make sure you hit that notification bell. But Fez, thank you ever so much for coming and gracing the channel and this episode with your presence. All your information and knowledge and ideas are something that I will really, take on board and, help me to make decisions going forward. And I'm hoping that the audience will do too. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for taking the time to check out the episode. And as I said, subscribe, follow, and make sure you hit the notification bell, because we have a lot more information coming, ideas for the future, and keeping you in check with what's happening with technology and AI.
5, 4, 3, 2.